Alright, so I'm live on YouTube. Hey YouTube, Instagram. This is the DUIResults.com. Attorney Robert J. Schefter, attorney at law. So welcome everyone. I'm getting all the cameras set up, so please bear with me. Just give me a second. Hope everyone's having a good day. I am Shane DeGarry. Appreciate you being here, and we're excited for you to be here. This is the DUI results. It's going to be a great show today, so thanks for being on. Just give me a second. I just got to finish up setting up one or two things, and we are all good to go. Yeah. So put in the town where everybody's from. It would be great to know where you are coming in from today. So whether you're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, please let us know. Alright, there we are. Set this up here. You're sitting right here, right? That's where you sit. Is that where you usually sit?
Yeah.
We'll keep you there.
Not finding a whole lot.
Alright, well then don't worry about it.
I found one. I
We're
thought
good.
they had like a gavel or something.
Yeah. Alright, let's see. Alright, welcome. Please, everyone, share and invite. Yep, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook. This is going to be an exciting, fun show. Hold on 1 second. Do you need wood or anything?
Oh,
Feeling fantastic. Put the mic on. Alright, YouTube, sorry about that. Alright, we are live in a few seconds here. Oh, we're live. Guys, welcome to DUIResults.com. I am the Shane DeGarry. I'm here with attorney Robert J. Schefter, attorney at law. Bobby, how are you today?
just great. How are you doing, Shane?
Dude, I'm doing awesome. It's great. I'm really excited about today. But I have to move the lighting back, so if we can move back a second. I gotta push the table. I was looking at the lighting. It's just a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. I just didn't want it right over our faces. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was adjusting from another show. That's perfect. Awesome. Thanks. Hey, everybody. Please share and invite. We got some exciting, fun news today, and it's going to be an interesting topic, one that I know people are going to enjoy getting into. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You look good today. Casual day.
Thanks.
Looks
Yes,
nice.
casual. Casual Friday. I love it.
Casual
I think
Friday.
I was in court every day this week except today, so it's nice to not have that super tie on.
Such a small world. I ran into a judge and they said to say, Heidi, it's a small world out
Yes.
there, York County.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? Guys, everyone, please share and invite this. Go to the website, go to the Facebook page, and like it and share it. You know, a lot of times what we're doing here is we're letting you know what's available to you. So God forbid if you need these services, you know where to go. So
Yes.
that's one thing. And the education we've been giving people has been amazing. I've had great feedback, and you know, it always starts with respectfully, shut up and lawyer up.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's a catch line. I always want to make sure you're clear, but everything that we do is respecting everybody in our community.
Right.
So we don't say it that way, right?
Exactly. Never disrespect the police officer. ever.
So what are we talking
So,
about?
all right, so we finished up a series on field sobriety tests, and that was great and contained a lot of valuable information. But you know, Shane, once you start putting yourself out like this, as I have been over so many weeks, you know, once in a while you get these comments. Just some of them are general, like scumbag lawyers or lawyers are scum and that sort of
I
thing.
can't believe you're representing them.
Yeah, and the other ones, you know, are a little more targeted. Like, how can you represent someone like this? And they have a picture of either a criminal or this person killed someone. How do lawyers represent them? So I know some of it is done in jest and some of it is serious. So I wanted to kind of step back today. It's not going to be a lot about DUI, but just in general talk about the profession itself and specifically criminal defense attorneys. And sometimes you get a bad rap. And really, I want to come around in the end and say, you people out there who are saying people don't deserve representation or how could you represent someone like this? I don't know that I'll convince you, but the point is you need to be be very thankful that that worst criminal defendant who did a heinous crime has a good attorney. And we'll get to that at the end, but it's an important point.
Well, I mean, it's crazy. We live in a society where people say that we're innocent until proven guilty, but we want to prove guilt like, like
yeah.
the people do. And I'm like, that goes against, like, let the chips fall and let the people represent it in my way. But I see how people feel that way. I would
The
second the
first
news
thing,
no.
yeah, from the very initial notice of the case, which is typically a newspaper article, or you see it on TV, and of course the media has their job, and that's to make it newsworthy, to make it impactful. And unfortunately, lots of times that is, you know, this person did this, this person's guilty, and it's not always that way. So I wanted to start. One of the biggest, or most famous quotes from Shakespeare is, "Let's kill all the lawyers." And it is. You know, people think back Shakespeare, a very wise person who wrote all these profound plays, and one of them in Henry VI, there's a quote, "Let's kill all the lawyers." So you look at that, and it was actually, again, from Henry VI, the character was named Dick the Butcher. He was one of these rebel rousers who was talking about overthrowing the government, taking over the king, and they were talking about when they did, how great it would be because there wouldn't be any rules, we could eat and drink all the time. And so when he's talking about taking over the king, he said, the first thing we're going to do is kill all the lawyers. Actually, there's different interpretations, but I think the predominant one is what Shakespeare was saying is, if you want to have anarchy, if you want to have a totally lawless society, then kill all the lawyers first. So what people think that Shakespeare cutting on lawyers was really a compliment to good lawyers who do the right thing. So that's one just anecdote as we get into it. But on a more serious note, when we look back in our early history, the first example I want to bring up is the Salem witch trials. I'm just fascinated by that whole episode in our history, and it's really dark history. And 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts, there had been these witch trials in other places, but this was the biggest example of mass hysteria back in that time. And what had happened, it basically started, you had some young children, girls, who were afflicted with something, some mental health issue. They were acting out, something was wrong with them, and there was a belief that a person who was afflicted could identify those who afflicted them. So these girls pointed out a couple people and said, oh, this person did this person did that. And so those people who were accused were immediately determined to be witches, to be possessed by the devil.
Wow.
And so what had happened, the first woman who was executed was, I believe her name was Sarah Bishop. And one of the girls had pointed to her and said that person, whether they believe they put a curse on them or looked at them the wrong way or whatever, there was a belief that if a person was afflicted, it's called spectral evidence, that that person was possessed, and they then had the power to identify who possessed them. Crazy as it sounds.
That is crazy.
So immediately, okay, so Sarah Bishop is immediately arrested, interrogated for hours upon end, and you can't say, if you say you're not a witch, that means the devil's possessed you even more, and if you say you are, then you're admitting the guilt. So the poor woman had no rights at all, was tried, had a trial that same day, and was convicted of being a witch. 8 days later, she was home. So when you talk about, and of course she didn't have an attorney, she didn't have due process. Due process is going through and making sure that a person has rights as they go through the system. So that's, you know, that's serious, that's real, that's in our history. So no attorney, no due process, someone accuses you of something and you're done. And you think that's crazy, but we see it today.
It's happened to me.
You know,
Several
you see
times.
something, you see something, you say, wow, that person's guilty, why waste all this time? Let's just either execute them or lock them up. So it's really not that far-fetched. It sounds far-fetched now, today,
Yeah.
but it's not. It happens. So then I want to move forward now a little in our history to a little over 100 years later, to the Boston Massacre. Another dark day in our history as we're going through the revolutionary times. And this is not going to be a whole history lesson, but these just a couple anecdotal stories.
Yeah.
So the Boston Massacre back in 1790 involved British Army shooting into a mob and killing, well, 2 died immediately and then 3 others died shortly thereafter. So it was termed the Boston Massacre because these British Army members, soldiers, shot and killed civilian Americans. So immediately in the newspaper, in the American newspaper, the British soldiers were persecuted in the press, and there was a mob mentality that we need to do away with them, have them hung or whatever the case may be. So by this time we had developed a little more as a society, so it wasn't just you're arrested, tried, convicted that day, and hung 8 days later. So what happened is you went around and tried to find attorneys in America who were going to represent these British soldiers. First couple said no, and then you get to a man named John Adams, future president of our country, esteemed lawyer in Boston. He said, you know what, I'm going to represent these people. Okay? And there had been a lot of newspaper articles and drawings depicting these British soldiers just shooting into a mob. And of course, everyone was hysterical about this. John Adams agrees to represent him because he knows, as one of the founding fathers of our country, that people have rights. You can't just rush to judgment. So he represents them, and as it turns out, they got a bunch of eyewitnesses, and the true story was that this mob basically attacked the soldiers, was beating them with clubs, throwing snowballs at them, and in self-defense, 1 or 2 of the soldiers shot at that crowd. So the first 6 people who were tried were acquitted. They were found not guilty. The British soldiers were found not guilty.
In our country.
Yeah, 2 of them were found guilty. The ones who they determined actually did the shooting, and but it was not first-degree murder, but a manslaughter. So again, an example of now that you go through due process, and the important thing there is that one of our founding fathers, John Adams, who future president, knew at that point these people need representation.
Wow.
So again, when you think about the people who are alleged to have committed heinous crimes, you really need to look further, because there's always going to be more to the story. So there's a couple pieces in our history, and then what that all leads up to is the 6th Amendment to the Constitution. All right, so we have our Constitution. The first 10 amendments is the Bill of Rights. The 6th Amendment talks about the rights of the criminally accused, and one of those rights is if you are facing charges that can land you in jail, you have the right to an attorney. You have the right to be represented by counsel. And if you, later, a Supreme Court decision said if you can't afford counsel, it will be provided for you. So I want to jump forward, then we'll go back. So today, right now, when people say, how can you represent this person or that person? What you need to know is that it's in our Constitution that people have to have representation. If they do not, then they can't be convicted. So for all the people out there who say people don't deserve an attorney and how can you represent them, that's why I say you better damn well hope that someone steps up and represents that person, because if they don't, then it's a violation of the constitutional rights, and that person could end up not getting convicted.
We had a case at a jewelry store in York, Pennsylvania, and the person didn't go to trial on time, and they let him up because they didn't have due process.
Right.
And it was a bad crime.
Right.
And they got out because of due process. Do you remember that? It was,
yeah. And that's your speedy trial rights. But as far as representation, if you go back to John Adams, I mean, this was before
I can't
the
imagine
Sixth
going to
Amendment.
court and not having an attorney.
Right.
Once you do experience that, once you experience something where you have repercussions that could be long-term in your life, you're like, I want somebody that knows this. I don't know this. I mean, really, you're getting someone that has the experience.
Right.
And that's really the key. And what's your passion? Can I ask you, why did you want to be a lawyer? I mean, knowing all this stuff that we're talking about today, Why don't you sign up and say, I want to go up that hill?
Yeah. It is a sense of really giving back to the community and standing up for people's rights. And, you know, I love to somewhat analytical. I love to like dive into the law. My background is in English. I was an English
I know, I
major.
love to hear this.
So, you know, the whole Shakespeare thing, I'm very into it. But really just the critical analysis that's involved, kind of dissecting the laws and looking for that kernel, looking for that thing that perhaps wasn't covered. But mainly it's as a problem solver. You know, I represent regular, everyday people. And I truly believe, Shane, that I can relate to them. There are, there are attorneys out there that they might be super smart, their intellect may be way up there, but they present themselves either as arrogant because they know they're smarter than others, or they can't relate to.
You have this thing
kind
of
of
you
people.
like to represent people because you know that they have the right to. Like I've heard from people out there. Listen, if you have attorney Robert J. Schefter on your side, he's a bulldog. Like he's gonna fight for you. He's gonna dig in.
Right.
And I think that's what people like.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, before I knew you a long time ago, when I had tickets, I was told to find someone that would dig, and I was calling attorneys, right? And they were saying this is what they wanted for a speeding ticket or whatever. And this one said, I'm going to rip the penal code apart. I'm like, yo, you're the one. Twice as much, but guess what? The results were amazing. I found someone that had passion, and that's what they get with you. I'm glad we're talking about this today,
Yeah.
because it's an important subject. When people say scumbag lawyers, I used to think lawyers were scumbags, but you get to know them, and you realize why are they doing it.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yeah, but
Some
some,
are
some
scumbags,
in every
right.
job is, right?
Oh,
That's the
absolutely,
thing.
absolutely. It's like anything else. You know, that very small percentage can ruin things for most everyone else. But that's
Yeah, I'm an insurance agent, right?
yeah, right. Yeah.
But let's talk about getting back on track. The subject of going forward, and then we were going backwards. So let's
Yeah.
get
So
back-
now, back to the Sixth Amendment. Not only does it guarantee the right to counsel, but that counsel has to be effective. So again, if you feel that a criminal defendant has committed a heinous crime and that person should just be locked up, you need to understand that number one, they have to have an attorney. And number two, that attorney has to be effective, because if they're not, you could go through a trial, that person could be convicted, and then that defendant can raise what's called a PCRA, Post-Conviction Relief Act claim, that alleges that their attorney at trial was ineffective. And if that attorney was ineffective, that defendant's likely going to get a new trial. And as time goes on, it becomes harder and harder to convict someone once you're doing it more and more. And if there are, I imagine there are some ineffectiveness claims against attorneys that are so egregious that eventually a defendant could be released. So when you say, scumbag lawyers, you shouldn't be representing these people, they should just be locked up, that's not going to happen. In fact, you really should be hoping that that person has a good attorney. Because, you know what, it's not always just about trying to get someone off. Someone committed something heinous and killed people, and they think that the attorney is there.
And
to
you
try to
never
get
talk
them
about
off.
that. You know what? A good point. I never hear you talk about that. You just want to make sure they have representation.
Right. So a good attorney, even if it's clear, let's say it's broad as day, someone shot someone and there's witnesses, it's on video. So it's not about that attorney trying to get the guy off. It's about making sure that they have that effective representation throughout, so that if ultimately that person is convicted, and if that evidence is that strong, it will be, that everything was done properly so that the defendant then doesn't have challenges to come back and try to get a new trial. So, there are always going to be people who just joke about it and don't really consider it, but when you really think about it, if someone has committed a terrible offense and faces serious charges and has killed people, you should hope that they have effective representation so that they end up where they should be ultimately. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that's the truth. And in my specifically homing in on what I do, I get it. I think attorneys have to have thick skin. If I'm representing someone who was DUI and involved in an accident and hurt someone else, and you have to face that person and their family in court, you need to understand and appreciate what they're going through, and they're not gonna like you. You know, they're gonna think that perhaps you're a scumbag lawyer.
Yeah.
And I just I appreciate that. I try to empathize. God forbid if I was in their shoes. God forbid if one of my children was hurt or killed. So you do try to empathize with what they're going through. And I would never say anything back if they said anything to me, because that's real, that's serious, that's emotion. And I got to put the emotion aside and represent my client zealously, because we might be at trial, and I might be arguing that my person should not be convicted of what he's charged with. That doesn't mean, obviously, that the victim should have went through what they did or anything like that. It doesn't mean that at all. But again, I have to do my job, and my role in the system is to represent my clients as zealously as I can, making sure and putting the prosecution to the test and making sure they can prove their case. Because I tell you what, if not, then it's a slippery slope, because then you start getting back to a time when, why do we need to try? You know, why don't we just, it's clear the guy did it. It's clear that innocent people were hurt, so why waste the time?
Yeah, because people
And then
think,
it
why
gets
are we
back
wasting
to-
the judicial system? We're clogging it up with this stuff. That's what they're thinking.
And I get that from kind of a lay person's perspective, but you have to understand it's in our Constitution, and if we don't have due process rights and we don't have attorneys representing criminal
Where do you
defendants,
stop? Where do you
our
start?
criminal justice system cannot operate. So if we don't
That's a
have
good point.
defense attorneys who step up and represent all defendants, then our criminal justice system doesn't work. And if our criminal justice system doesn't work, then we might as well get rid of it and just let police arrest people. If they think they did it, then just lock them up. And nobody wants that. Again, no disrespect to our police, but they have a specific role in the system. And the role is not to be judge and jury. Their role is to investigate and file charges.
And there really is a process when you get to know, you should educate yourself on our process. You know, we're taught that it's street justice. It doesn't matter what you know, you go through the process, and that's why having an attorney is important. And you know, I think this is great because I've seen a lot of the views, and now I'm like, wow, that makes sense. But where do you stop? Where do you start? Who's important? Who's not? Right? Everyone is.
Absolutely. Everybody has a role in the system, and we have a great criminal justice system. You look at other third world countries where there's no due process, no right to counsel. You just don't know. Someone could sail on witch trials. Again, you think it's crazy. It will never happen. It happens, I'm sure, today.
So, I mean, you're looking at rule books. I mean, you look at playbooks, rule books, you can call it what you want, but you know you look at the rules, there's certain things that are allocated for certain things, and so, you know, there's a lot of details that people don't see. They see guilty, not guilty, did it, not guilty, but it's much deeper, much more, facets of this, long-term, short-term, affecting people's lives, their kids' lives, their wives' lives, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's a lot to this. It's not just cut and dry.
Absolutely. I mean, there are, you take a simple DUI stop, there's so much involved. Why did the officer pull you over? And then what did he ask you to do? And then what did you do in response? And, they have to establish probable cause at different levels. And then when you get to looking at the law itself, the different levels, the different chemicals that can be in your system, does that fall within the controlled substance definitions and the lab test results? You gotta pour over those, make sure that they're within the range and that there's a margin of error. And then there's just so much involved with what could appear to be a simple.
It's not easy, hey, this person was in and out, in and out. It's not like that.
Right.
So people want it to be simplified. It's very complicated. We're talking about human lives.
Right. So again, talk a little bit about scumbag lawyers. People don't like lawyers, and then, but if you really, and again, some are more targeted. Like, how can you represent this person who did this, and it shows, the victim. But so some of it's lighthearted, some of it's more targeted. But the reality, no matter where you are in the system, you need to understand that it's in everybody's best interest if the person charged with the crime has good representation. And it's not always about getting them off. Most of my cases actually don't go to trial. It's a matter of getting the person through the system, making sure they're following what they need to do, making sure their rights are being defended along the way, But a lot of times, we know that my client is guilty, and they admit guilt, and they accept responsibility, and it's counseling them through the process. So, again, today was just kind of a general conversation. I think it's important to hit some of the fun highlights from
It is.
with the Shakespeare, let's kill all the lawyers. We didn't even get to the lawyer jokes. I want to know if you know any good lawyer jokes. I want to look some good ones up because I've probably heard them all, and a lot of them are funny, but maybe
Yeah.
another one on lawyer
Yeah,
jokes.
that would be good. Well, I think
Yeah,
it's
that's
important.
good.
I think it's important that you bring out, the more that people, and I'll give you advice to anybody out there, the more that you're authentic and show who you are as a person, people are their own judge. They can watch this video and they're gonna see the passion you have, right? And they know the passion I have. So they can tell. Work with people that are passionate. And the nice thing is instead of looking at the phone book, you can look at your phone and find an attorney that you got to know, not just a phone number. When you see attorney Robert J. Schefter, attorney at law, you're going to get to know him. You can go back and look at his videos, and you're going to see consistency. How long have you been working in this area?
22 years.
22
20,
years.
23.
You look too young to be doing that one.
Yeah, right. My
But-
gray balding head.
But
Yeah.
experience is important, and you're involved in your community. Get to know people. I deal with people that are involved. You have a family. You have your interest in your school district, right? Like it's a whole flow. You are truly involved in your community, and anyone that you deal with should be involved in their community. I mean, 100%. It's not about making money. You all think all these lawyers just want to get rich and make
I
money.
wish.
He did come up in a Rolls Royce now.
Yeah, right.
But
My Ford
you know,
Fusion.
yeah.
That's my
And
little
I'm me, I'm driving the Benzo, right?
Yeah.
So, but look, do your thing out there. Find someone that that is gonna be in your corner. I know one thing about attorney Robert J. Schefter, attorney at law, and that is that he is passionate. So if you have a DUI, this is not the judgment zone. This is the get representation zone. And if you might not need them now, and you get pulled over, you don't know what to do, you follow respectfully everything the officer says, okay? But when they ask you to give your story, that's where you respectfully,
Shut up and lawyer up.
yep, and it's all respectfully. It's just a point to get it in your mind so you understand, because it is intense. You are scared. You don't know what's going on, and that's when you have to remember this. Just relax. Go through the process. There's not going to be any trial done on the street. Is there?
Nope.
So even though you might know, and they might know, your job is to get through that process respectfully without getting any extra charges, right? And then you're not even a call from the jail. Let's understand. Let me explain. I don't know how. I'm just telling you how the process works. You'll get your charges. You can call, and there's the number you want to call right there: 717-747-9048. You can go to www.duiresults.com. And even though you don't have your charges yet, you can still call, because I know you're going to want to talk to them just to get relaxed. And you're going to want to hear everything that's going to be okay. We'll help you through the process. And you heard him hear that. He's going to help you. His team's going to help you through the process. And I think just that, taking that stress off of people's lives, is really important. Knowing that they got someone in their corner when they're feeling scared, vulnerable, and they may have made a mistake. But guys, we don't want to make people our mistakes. We need to get people productive in our society again. We have to get them back on track. So it's not about burying people.
Right.
So I appreciate you being out there.
Thanks.
Definitely. Anything else you want to say? What's the next series? Do we know what the next one is? Are you going to come up with
I'll
it
have
this
to think
week?
about it. I'll have to think about it.
And if you have any questions, put them through.
Yeah, the suggested topics, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so you can message right through the Facebook page, or you can text or call or whatever, but come up with some suggestions. We appreciate everybody being here. Don't drink and drive. Don't drug and drive. If you're out there and you do happen to get accused of drinking and driving, make sure that you shut up respectfully and lawyer up, and go to DUIResults.com or call attorney Robert J. Schefter, write this down, 717-747-9048. Pennsylvania's DUI attorney. It ain't the judgment zone, it's the representation zone. Come on, girl. Come on, man.